Every person in this room has crossed the threshold of birth. But when did that passage end? At the first breath? When the cord was cut? When the placenta was delivered? Or did birth continue through warmth, touch, eye contact, the first search for nourishment, before anyone thought to call it something else? Good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be here. I offer my sincere gratitude to Dr. Payel Biswasu for these invitations, and also to the organizers of this conference, and to the mothers, babies, families, caregivers, and ancestors whose lives bring all of us together in this conversation. I would also like to acknowledge the lands that host us and their guardians, reminding us that from the very beginning, life unfolds in relationship with one another and with the natural world around us. Today, I come to you as an independent scholar, a student of pre and perinatal education, and someone with deep interest in early human development. Over the past years, I have found myself returning to the same questions through different disciplines: developmental science, breastfeeding, birth psychology, embryology, and consciousness studies, to name a few. At first, they seemed like separate conversations. Gradually, they began to sound like different viewpoints to the same landscape. Above all, I come to you as a fellow human being, curious about one fundamental question. How might the ways we welcome babies help create families and ultimately societies in which more people can thrive? At the breastfeeding conference, we naturally ask how to improve breastfeeding outcomes. We examine milk production, transfer and storage, positioning, latch, oral function, maternal pain, prematurity, medication, illness, and practical support. All of this matters deeply. And yet I wonder whether one more question belongs at the very beginning. What have this mother and this baby just lived through? Birth does not end when the baby leaves the mother's body. It is part of a developmental passage, extending from prenatal life through labor and birth into skin-to-skin contact, gaze, feeding, regulation, and relationship. Before birth, the placenta supports oxygenation, nourishment, hormonal exchange, immune interaction, and many aspects of fetal physiology over many months. Then, within a remarkably short period of time, the placenta's work gently recedes and another form of support begins to emerge. The baby must breathe, maintain temperature, digest, orient to light and sound, and begin feeding. Yet the baby does not suddenly become independent. Development has not ended. It has simply changed environments. Warmth, touch, skin, smell, movement, heartbeat, voice, gaze, proximity, and milk now help guide this transition. Regulation, once organized within the maternal body and placenta, is progressively reorganized through the baby's emerging capacities in relationship with the mother and other caregivers. The journey from placenta to breast is therefore not simply a change in nutrition or environment. It is a transition from one form of regulation and relationship to another. Let's consider a first birth. Labor unfolds without major complications. The baby crawls and latches to the mother's breast. No one rushes their first meeting. The baby hears a familiar voice, recognizes familiar skin, feels warmth, and gradually begins to search. The mother watches, touches, waits, and responds. The first feed is not perfect, but it is allowed to unfold. This is not a morally superior birth. It is one pathway in which physiological and relational processes are largely protected. Skin-to-skin, gaze, the breast crawl, and early feeding do not guarantee an easy breastfeeding journey, but together they can offer continuity within enormous change. They allow mother and baby begin discovering one another in a new way. And yet, this relationship did not begin in the delivery room. Research on prenatal learning shows that before birth, the developing baby responds to sound, rhythm, movement, touching, and changes in the maternal environment. Newborns recognize the maternal voice and show familiarity with sounds they encounter before birth. Pre and perinatal psychology invites us to extend that curiosity a little further. Medical doctor Eleni Skrekou and others have gathered thousands of reports from children describing experiences identified as memories from the womb or birth. Such accounts do not by themselves establish how explicit memory functions before and during birth. I'm sorry, it's a bit sentimental topic for me. They may be interpreted literally, phenomenologically, symbolically, or in several ways at once. Yet they invite an important ethical question. What changes when we approach the baby as an experiencing participant, rather than a passive object of delivery? Whatever position we take on explicit birth memory, the newborn's capacities for sensation, learning, regulation, and relationship deserve our fullest attention. Skrekou's work in particular encourages us to receive the child as a relational participant and to consider the child's own point of view. So what if the baby is not simply born, but is an active and responsive participant living through birth? This does not diminish the mother's role, of course. It widens our view. Birth is lived by two people whose experiences are distinct yet inseparable. The mother may feel powerful, relieved, frightened, exposed, exhausted, disappointed, or many of these at once. Her experience of what happened matters. A medically uncomplicated birth may still feel overwhelming if she felt unheard or powerless. A medically complex birth may be integrated very differently when she felt informed, respected, included, and protected. Now consider a second birth. An emergency develops. A cesarean becomes necessary. The baby requires immediate care, and mother and baby are separated. Both survive because professionals act quickly and skillfully. Later, the mother says, "I know they saved us, but I feel as though I missed the moment my baby arrived." Then they are reunited. The baby is sleepy and unsettled. The mother is in pain and quietly fears that her body has failed her and her baby. Several people offer instructions. Each watches the latch. The harder everyone tries, the more tense the encounter becomes. When support focuses only on performance, the baby can become a mouth that must latch, and the mother, a body that must produce. A relational approach sees something different. It sees two people, each carrying their own experience, trying to find one another after an immense transition. This is where acknowledgement begins to matter. Acknowledgement begins by recognizing that something happened and that it was lived by someone. It does not involve blaming. It does not mean declaring every intervention as traumatic. It does not require proving what the baby remembers. It may begin by listening to the mother without correcting, diminishing, or explaining away her experience. Yes, the operation was necessary, and it was frightening. Yes, your baby is healthy, and you are grieving the beginning you expected. Both statements can be true simultaneously. Acknowledgement can also extend to the baby. Before touching, moving, examining, or attempting another feed, a professional can slow down, make contact, and speak calmly. "Welcome, you are here. Your mother is here. We know you have been through a great deal. We're here to support you. What happened to you matters." We do not need to know exactly how the newborn receives every word to recognize the value of addressing the baby as a person. Tone, pace, touch, facial expression and the quality of presence are themselves forms of communication. Acknowledgement does not change what happened. It changes whether what happened must be carried along. And repair begins where experience is recognized. Repair is not about creating a perfect beginning. It is the restoration of contact, trust, and regulation in the present. Let's now consider a third birth. After an urgent delivery and several hours of separation, a mother and baby are struggling to find one another. The mother is distressed. The baby cries and turns away when we're brought quickly towards the breast. This time, the lactation professional does not begin with the latch. She or he first listens to what happened, lets the mother become comfortable, and gently lowers the pressure in the room. The baby is placed skin to skin without an immediate feeding goal. The mother notices the baby's breathing, warmth, movements, and gaze. She says, I wanted to be with you. I am here now. The baby is allowed to approach contact gradually. Milk is expressed when needed, and skilled feeding support continues. Over time, touch becomes less guarded, and breastfeeding begins, partially and imperfectly, as one part of their reconnection. The value of the story is not that breastfeeding healed the birth. Breastfeeding is neither the only path to attachment, nor a measure of maternal worth. The important change is in the approach, from demand to invitation, from performance to relationship, from silent difficulty to acknowledged experience. Repair may take many forms: skin-to-skin contact, holding, voice-responsive feeding, expressed milk, bottle feeding with attunement, practical support, psychological support, and time. We do not have to choose between life-saving medicine and relational care. We need both. We can explain before touching, include mothers in decisions, reduce avoidable separation, and actively support reunion when interruption cannot be prevented. The guiding question then expands from what procedure must be completed to what is happening here, medically, psychologically, developmentally, and relationally, for this mother and this baby. Birth may matter not only as a medical event, but as an experience carried beyond ordinary conscious recall. Psychiatrist Stanislav Grof explored this possibility through decades of work with non-ordinary states of consciousness. Hundreds of participants described experiences connected to prenatal life and birth. Grof proposed that unresolved perinatal experiences might continue to shape psychological life long afterwards, a topic of exploration also by pre and perinatal psychology. His interpretations remain debated, and I do not present them as established developmental science. Yet his work invites an important question. Have we underestimated the significance of birth because much of its influence may lie beyond conscious memory? If birth can leave enduring implicit traces, then protecting continuity and when disruption occurs, offering acknowledgement, reunion, and early opportunities for repair may matter even more than we currently appreciate. A few weeks ago, I attended my first holotropic breathwork workshop, a method developed by Stanislav Grof and his wife and psychotherapist, Christina Grof. Through accelerated breathing, evocative music, and supportive facilitation, it allows emotionally significant experiences to emerge in non-ordinary states of consciousness. During the workshop, I encountered experiences that felt profoundly connected to my own birth. They were physical, emotional, and deeply affecting. I offer this as a personal experience, not as a scientific proof. What stayed with me was the intensity of the experience. and a new appreciation of how immense the passage of birth may be for the baby as well as the mother. It became clear that intense experiences may be carried long after the moment itself has passed, and may first need to be recognized before they can begin to find resolution. That experience brought me back to mothers and babies. If adults sometimes revisit experience associated with birth decades later, might we be overlooking an earlier opportunity? Perhaps the first hours and days, or even months after birth, already offer conditions that support integration, reunion, skin-to-skin contact, breastfeeding, co-regulation, responsive care, and acknowledgement of what both mother and baby have lived through. Peace does not mean that an uninterrupted beginning is a ruined beginning. Human development remains open, adaptive, and relational. Loving attachment can grow after cesarean birth, prematurity, separation, feeding difficulties, or a decision not to breastfeed. Repair is not the responsibility of the mother alone. It is supported or sometimes hindered by families, professionals, institutions, and cultures. For me, all of this returns to three simple truths. The mother's experience matters, the baby's experience matters, and the way we meet them afterwards matters. When I began this inquiry, I asked a seemingly simple question. When does birth end? Perhaps it ends not as a single moment, but gradually, as one form of relationship gives way to another. Perhaps birth is completed not only by leaving the womb, but through the relationships that welcomes us into the world. If that is true, then what happens after birth is not simply aftercare. It is part of birth itself. Every time we protect early contact, every time we help a mother and baby find one another, every time we acknowledge what they have lived through, we help shape the baby's first encounters with the world into experiences of welcome, safety, and recognition. And these encounters take place during one of the most profound periods of human development. In this extraordinary transition, the quality of the care we offer becomes part of the present and future unfolding of a human life. Thank you. Here I have compiled a selected bibliography list for those wishing to explore the topic further, the topics that I touched upon. And these are my contact details. I can send any of these to you if you would like by contacting me. Thank you again for your attention and your presence at this conference.